who's actually going to get the most out of a desktop laser engraver, and who should walk away before they even plug it in. If you're wondering whether a $200+ machine is a smart purchase for weekend hobby projects or if it's better suited for a small business that needs to churn out custom glassware, you're not alone. The big question is, does the Creality Falcon T1 UV5W give everyday makers enough bang for their buck without turning their workspace into a mini lab? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When I first started looking into laser engravers, I kept hitting the same crossroads: a cheap hobby-grade unit that can barely etch wood versus a professional-grade system that costs as much as a small car. The Falcon T1 sits in that middle ground, promising 5-in-1 modular power and the ability to work on glass, acrylic, ceramics, and a handful of other materials. That promise sounded great on paper, but the real test is how it behaves once you set it up on a cluttered desk, fire up the UV diode, and try to put a logo on a coffee mug for a friend's birthday. Let's walk through a typical day in the life of a user. You pull the machine out of its cardboard box, attach the modular power unit, and slide a piece of clear glass onto the bed. The software, which runs on a Windows laptop, asks you to import a vector file, set the power level, and hit start. Within a few seconds, the UV laser traces the design, and you're left with a crisp, shallow engraving that looks nothing like a burn-ton mark. The no burn, no mess claim holds up because the UV wavelength essentially vaporizes the surface without generating the smoke you'd expect from a CO laser. That's a real win if you're working in a small apartment or a shared studio where ventilation is limited. Now, who should consider buying this machine? First, hobbyists who already have a basic understanding of vector graphics and are comfortable with a little trial-and-error will find the Falcon T1 a solid addition to their toolkit. If you spend weekends making custom keychains, personalized glassware, or small signage, the ability to switch between glass, acrylic, and ceramic without swapping out the laser head is a genuine time-saver. Small-scale entrepreneurs who fulfill custom orders, think Etsy sellers who sell engraved tumblers or boutique wedding favors, also stand to benefit. The modular power unit means you can upgrade the wattage later if your business outgrows the 5W output, which adds a layer of future-proofing that many entry-level machines lack. On the flip side, there are clear cases where the Falcon T1 isn't the right fit. If you're a complete beginner who has never touched a vector file or dealt with laser safety protocols, the learning curve may feel steep. The machine requires a well-ventilated area or an additional exhaust system, especially when you move beyond glass to materials like certain plastics that can release fumes. Also, if your primary material is wood or leather, a UV laser won't give you the depth or contrast that a CO laser provides, so you'd be paying for capabilities you never use. Finally, larger businesses that need high-throughput production should look at industrial-grade systems. The 5W output, while perfect for delicate engravings, can be a bottleneck when you need to process dozens of items per hour. Let's dig into the practical strengths that show up in day-to-day use. The first is precision. The Falcon T1 claims Micron-Level accuracy, and in practice you'll see that the edges of a logo on a glass coaster are razor-sharp, with no ragged lines. That level of detail is hard to achieve with a standard hobby laser, which often leaves a fuzzy halo. The second strength is versatility. Because the UV diode can engrave a range of non-metal surfaces, you can keep one machine and cover multiple product lines. For a maker who likes to experiment, say, etching a pattern on a ceramic tile one day and a clear acrylic phone stand the next, the quick material change is a real workflow enhancer. The third advantage is the relatively clean operation. Since the laser doesn't rely on high heat, you avoid the charcoal-like residue that can gum up a workspace, meaning less time spent on cleanup and less wear on the machine's optics. No product is without its trade-offs, and the Falcon T1 is no exception. The most noticeable weakness is the limited material thickness it can handle. With a 5W UV source, you're essentially restricted to surface-level markings. You can't cut through even a 1/4 inch of acrylic. If you need to actually cut shapes out of material, you'll need a separate CNC router or a more powerful laser. Another practical downside is the reliance on the proprietary software. While it's functional for basic tasks, power users who prefer open-source platforms or want deeper control over scan speed and pulse frequency may find it restrictive. There's also the matter of safety. UV lasers are invisible, so you must wear proper goggles at all times. The machine does include a safety interlock, but the onus is still